Hi, welcome to Make or Repair. According to the owner, this went pop and smelled of burning. So he didn't use it after that apparently, which is kind of good news that he didn't use it. A lot of people don't realise just how much energy is involved here. Yeah, it's battery powered, but the amount of energy to fire that xenon flash is significant. And if it goes wrong, it can take out not just the transistor, but it can also go back through the circuit, destroying other things. Who knows what sort of state this is in and why that went wrong, but whatever, I won't be powering it on until I've had a good look inside. And before working on any of these flashes, you do need to remove the battery and make sure that it's discharged for quite a lot of time. I will double check when I get access to the capacitors just to be on the safe side. But yes, you could give yourself quite a nasty shock on one of these because they're made for Canon, Sony, etc. So for each one, they're going to have a slightly different layout on the hot shoe. And yeah, I kind of suspect that pretty much the hot shoe is replaced and it's just burnt with a different firmware. I could take that cable out. I'm going to leave it just hanging for the time being, I think. I'm going to look in the battery compartment, make sure there's no screws in there. I can't see any. So I can see that this just wants to part company now, except for the top part. Does it have any screws around here? Can't see any. Any in the top here? Can't see any there either. What about under this little supposedly waterproof rubbery thing? I see no screws under there either. But I'm feeling a lot of resistance over the top, and that's probably this swivel here just holding everything together, I'm guessing. So now I need to take this flash head apart. You can see two screws on the bottom. So far I've taken off the hot plate, and that pretty much, this is 90% falling apart now. Let me just have a look at these screws. These are slightly different. So it's useful that I video these because it helps me remember what screw goes where. And yeah, we're close there. I'm going to take these little rubber bumpers off the side because often they hide things behind these. Oh, if I can get them out. Come on. Yeah, often they hide things behind them. Now, this is one of the things I hate about doing camera related repairs, is they just like sticky tape. So I'll just have to cut a new piece of double-sided sticky tape to go in there. Unfortunately, I could be unscrewing all sorts of things that don't need to be unscrewed at the moment, but we'll just kind of get as far as we can. If they can make it in a factory, I'm sure I can put it back together again. I'm pretty sure this is just holding the entirety of the case onto the central swivel. Probably going to give me the amount of access that I need, I hope. So I'm going to just disconnect this because I don't want to drop any more bits out of the top there. Put that to one side. And here's our flash unit. You can see it's pretty small. There's a wire soldered on either side, and there should be another one just wrapped around the end somewhere coming out. Yeah. So is this clear wire that'll just be wrapped around the end of the tube, and these two go to the actual terminals. Doesn't smell great. Let's delve a bit further. What is quite nice on this is that they haven't used actual loads and loads of interlocking clips on the case. I undo the screws, it comes apart. That's always just so nice from a repair perspective. So this blown component is pretty obvious, and it is actually the SCR. It's a CR5AS-12A, and that's actually obsolete. Now I can actually get something that's equivalent. It's an S680II-S2RP, and the only difference between them is the gate needs 200 microamps instead of 100. But that doesn't really present any issue. There's going to be a serious gate resistor somewhere, and I might have to just lower it a shade, but it's probably completely unnecessary. Just next to it is what looks like an optical device, and that appears to be cracked, I think, and there's also some debris and burning from a capacitor. I do have a broken Mark III as well, so hopefully I can use that to see the exact parts. So I don't have any circuit diagrams for these flashes, but what I want to do is just get something in my mind about roughly how they operate. And I've seen the boards. I mean, first of all, let's just understand the flash. We've got manual, but that's variable brightness. We've got through the lens, so that has to switch off at various different speeds. And we've got high-speed sync, so that means lots of pulses of very quick light. So to handle that, normally we use an IGBT connected the 300 volts or so on. So we generate 300 volts with a DC-DC converter, and we charge up a big flash capacitor, which can handle tens of amps flowing suddenly through these flash tubes. And we use an IGBT to control that. Now, as far as I can see, the IGBT is pretty much always turned on, providing the 300 volts to the flash tube. But the flash tube, of course, doesn't flash because 300 volts isn't enough. This is a xenon insulator, and yeah, it's not going to do anything with 300 volts. What it needs to do is it needs to be ionized, and that's what this little ring is around it and the transformer before it. So when we're ready to start the flash, then we trigger the SCR just here into conduction, and essentially that's going to create a little pulse on this capacitor. Now, I haven't shown some of the control diodes and things like that that are making the current flow in the right direction here, and there's a resistor involved as well. But let's ignore that for the minute. What we do is we create a bit of a pulse on this capacitor, which of course transformers only work with AC. That creates a little bit of AC on this transformer, which creates a high voltage, about 6,000 volts over here on the tube, and ionizes the xenon inside it, and now it can conduct. Now the IGBT is of course passing DC, so until it conducts there's no current flowing because it can't pass through this capacitor, and it also can't pass through the tube, so there's zero current. So as soon as this tube starts conducting, then actually this coil just here also starts conducting. Now there's a little bit of a delay involved in that. We're using the SCR as the pass through to begin with, but once that starts conducting, then there's no current through the SCR anymore, because one of the things with an SCR is it latches on. This is DC, it's not AC, it's DC, so that SCR latches on, but fortunately this coil is going to bypass that, and then current will stop going through the SCR. There'll be no voltage difference essentially across the two ends, and yeah, the SCR will stop conducting, turn off, and it's ready for the next flash. The IGBT in the meantime is simply timing how long that flash lasts for, and when we need to stop it flashing, the IGBT stops conducting briefly, only has to do it for a little pulse, and that extinguishes the tube, no current flows anymore, and the SCR is turned off, and all is well, it's ready for its next cycle. Just to be clear though, all of these coils and transformers and things like that, and just the wires themselves, they're all creating large amounts of back EMF, many hundreds and possibly thousands of volts, and they have to all be handled with diodes, and there'll be some subcapacitors in there as well. So there we go, that's our lot really. IGBT provides the power and turns off the power to extinguish everything. The SCR ignites everything or strikes everything to get it going. This is the V860 you've seen me just taking apart and commenting on some of the parts. And I've stripped off the Thyristor and the other components and cleaned it all up ready for repair. And I've also got this Mark III, which has all the intact components on it, but it doesn't work. Now, I won't actually be repairing this Mark III because the tube has gone. It's taken out the SCRs, the driver triac for the SCRs, and also done some damage to the control circuitry on the main board. Now, I did repair the head, but after that it simply just got too expensive, so I'm just going to use it as a donor. I've taken off this capacitor just to measure it, and it's a 0.1 microfarad capacitor, so I can easily put those on, and it won't be particularly high voltage because it's going across this LED, and this actually is an LED, and it's got a forward voltage drop of about 2 volts, and all that's doing actually is just capping the voltage on the gate on this Thyristor. Just a few comments on it though. Here's the old one. So 1 Thyristor, 3 diodes. Other than that, the circuit's pretty much the same. The motor drive's the same, the zoom's the same, the flash tube is the same, everything's the same apart from that. So 1 versus 2. So I'm kind of wondering if they've had quite a lot of failures on this part, and they've decided to beef it up by providing two, and that's why this one blew apart. Yeah, this is a 2016 board, and this is a 2020 board, so there's clearly been an upgrade between the two, because there's no actual other reason for doing that, because the actual flash output is exactly the same. There's no difference in wattage or anything like that. The power dissipation and the back EMF and everything that's happening in this one is also happening in this one identically. First, I just want to make sure the pads are all nice and clean, so I'm just wicking off the old solder with some braid. Now, normally I would pop a little solder paste onto all of these pads and just use hot air to put all three components on at the same time. So that's the SCR, one capacitor and an LED. But I'm aware not everyone has access to hot air, so I'm going to use a big soldering iron instead and just some normal solder. It's going to be a bit tricky for me with the microscope and everything in the way, but I'll do my best. Now, I do see often people on YouTube pouring tons and tons of flux onto these joints. And these joints do need flux in order to solder, but you don't really need tons of it. The job of the flux is to keep the air off and just to clean everything. These are clean. They've just got solder on them, and there's not really much oxide involved on there. So you only need a little bit of flux in order to get all this to work well. The job of the flux is just to keep the air off while this heats up. If you have lots of it, all you do is get loads of bubbling flux that goes all over the place. So I'm going to tin one side of these two little components to begin with. And what I like to do is to tin a bit, and then I like to put my iron at one end of a tinned pad and slide the component up to it through the pool of molten solder. And that helps me just position everything really nicely. Now, that's a bit tricky in this instance because there's so little room to get the tip in place. But the aim is just to tack one side using that tinned solder, and then go back and you solder the other side of the component really well and properly with fresh solder. Then you go back to the first side and just add a little cord solder to that to finish it off, using flux cord solder, of course. Now, the capacitor is just a 50 volt, 0.1 microfarad 0805. It's a little big. A 603 would have been better, I think, but it does just fit. And then the LED is also an 0805. It's just any standard small LED, really. Make sure you fit it the right way, of course. And mine's an 0805 purple LED, as it happens, from my spares box. And it's got a forward voltage drop of about 2.2 volts. The back's a little bit messy, but I'll clean that up in a few minutes. So onwards to solder on the SCR, and of course it's got a huge flat tab that I can't put the iron under, so I'm going to have to introduce some solder under the tab in advance that will remelt later. So flux is really important here, and I'm fluxing both the board and the back of the device in this instance. Now I'm melting solder onto the board, and that's also going to make it kind of hot and easy to remelt. That really fresh solder is going to melt really easily. Now, to make sure I position the SCR properly, I choose the smallest of the legs and I tack that one neatly in place to begin with. And then I solder the other leg quickly so the SCR is nice and central. So I must be able to see the PCB pad extending just beyond the top of the SCR. Now, to solder the tab, what I do is I lie a bit of solder along the end and I heat that solder, the tab and the board all at the same time. So I'm getting it wet and then I'm pushing the tip of the soldering iron down into that junction. And then I top it up and I let the solder wick underneath the device using capillary action. Now I can see the flux being displaced out of the edges, and once that's done, that's it really. Now don't blow on it, don't try and cool it, just let it happen naturally. And it will take quite a few minutes, but that way you're not stressing anything. And as a note, I guess, this is easier with leaded solder. So if you've got some to hand, then use that, but otherwise it's not essential, it's just easier. So I do need to clean all this flux off and stuff like that, but before I get too much further, I am actually going to just try and see if this does anything terribly useful at all. Okay, so I've taken the front off this and I can see the switching transistor, step-up transformer, and also the IGBT. And of course on the other side is the LCD and some digital electronics. Now I don't suspect any parts in here, but I want to connect some external power to these terminals and also take a look anyway. Now they've removed the marking from the IGBT, but apparently it's an IXGP 48N60A3 or equivalent. Now it's quite a beast. It can handle short bursts of very high current. The switching transistor is marked and it's a IRF 3205S. Now, I always look at the high energy part of the circuit as likely failure, and so both of these are potential points of failure. Now, if they do go, then also trace back to nearby capacitors and resistors just to make sure they're okay. Unfortunately, I forgot to film opening it up, so let me show you on the Mark III. Now, obviously, first of all, you need to remove this hot shoe, just take out the 4 screws, and then there's a little ribbon cable inside that you might leave it attached, or you might take care and just pop it out. Now, there's then 2 screws hidden underneath the head. So you turn it sideways and you can kind of get access. Now the head is a little bit in the way on one side, so just turn it 70 degrees or so, remove one, turn it the other way, remove the other. And then just make sure any little flaps covering like ports and things like that are open, and just wiggle it apart. So I've connected 11.1 volts, and by the way, if you're doing a Mark III, it's only 7.4. But anyway, it's turning on, moving the flash head, and then cycling off, and then back on again. So I suspect what's happening is when that flash head reaches the top, the capacitor starts charging, and it's drawing too much current, and my power supply is just limiting it. It then resets, and it goes again. Okay, so I've turned up my current limit to about 7 amps, and now it does charge, it stays on, and hopefully the video camera can catch that the flash is now flashing every time I press this little red button. And so this is really, really good news. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to program this so that I can trigger it from a remote flash control, because I don't want to put it on my camera until I've just checked everything out. Flashing away completely happily. I don't know whether this comes out on the video or not. So this flash gun is flashing away like a new one. So I'm happy with that. That's worked pretty well. Let me turn it up to full power then for a much more powerful flash. Oh yes, perfect. And then that just takes a few seconds to recharge. Absolutely spot on. So the proportional control is coming through the remote controller, the flash is flashing, the zoom is zooming, and everything is good. I just need to figure out how to put it all back together again. Just messing with my lens a little. There we go. Beautiful. Right, so just a few screws to put in the sides here. Now these little rubber covers, they do have a locating peg that goes into a corresponding little hole. Now for replacing the adhesive, I suggest to take like the 3M 300 LSE, and that is super strong. So there it is, one working flash. I just need to order a battery, of course. Now I got a bit of a lucky break with this. It was just those 3 very obvious scorched parts, and that was less than £2 to repair. So I hope this helps you get your flash up and running. Just don't forget to discharge the main capacitor first. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment and share. And I'm a small site, so please remember the hype button as well. That's going to help a lot. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.